The corporate masquerade ball. For the first time in my life, every eye in the room turned toward me, not with polite interest, but with shock. I wasn't Donald, the quiet new executive who blended into conference rooms and hallways. Tonight, I was someone no one could ignore, someone who had finally stepped out of the shadows. Picture it. Crystal chandeliers casting golden light across masked faces, champagne glasses clinking in rhythm with the orchestra. This wasn't just another company party. This was the corporate masquerade ball, a night where identities blur and possibilities feel endless. As I walked in wearing emerald silk and a black lace mask, the atmosphere shifted. Some saw elegance, some saw scandals, and one person in particular saw a chance to tear me down. What happened next would shatter every perception, theirs and mine. Not just how my colleagues saw me, but how I saw myself. And it all began with a single emerald green gown and the courage to wear it. Before we dive in, I'd love to invite you to join our growing community here at the Gender Diary. We're on our way to our first big milestone, 1,000 subscribers. So if this story resonates with you, hit subscribe and be part of the journey. Now, let me take you back to where it all began. 3 months earlier, I was living a completely different reality. Donald Miller. That was me. 28 years old, newly promoted to executive level at one of the city's most prestigious firms. On paper, I had everything going for me. Sharp mind, strong work ethic, innovative ideas that consistently impressed the senior partners. But here's the thing about me. I had this frustrating habit of fading into the background. Not because I lacked confidence in my abilities, but because I'd built this invisible wall around myself. Cool, reserved, professional. That's how colleagues described me. As for me, I feel forgettable. Recognition felt like a distant dream. I wanted to be seen, to be heard, to command the respect I truly deserved. But blending in had become my default mode, and breaking out of that pattern felt impossible. The recognition I craved wasn't just about my ideas at work. It was about a deeper part of me I'd kept hidden, a feminine side I'd explored in private but never dared to reveal publicly. The thought of letting that version of myself be seen, of stepping into a room unapologetically, felt both terrifying and intoxicating. Then, one afternoon, the opportunity presented itself. An elegant cream envelope appeared on my desk, sealed with the company's embossed logo. Inside, an invitation that would alter the trajectory of my entire life. Corporate Masquerade Ball, New Year's Eve. Theme, masks, transformation, freedom. Come as you are, or as you've always dreamed of being. Those last words hit me like lightning. As you've always dreamed of being. What did that mean for someone like me? Someone who'd spent years hiding behind professional facades and carefully constructed personas? What I didn't know then was how this single envelope would change everything. Not just how others saw me, but how I saw myself. I stared at that invitation for what felt like hours, my mind racing with possibilities I'd never dared to consider. A chance to step out of the shadows and into the light. A chance to be seen. That evening, I sat across from Stacy, my girlfriend of 2 years, the invitation still trembling in my hands. She could see the unsettling in my mind, the way she always could. Stacy had this incredible ability to read me like her favorite book. Every page familiar, every plot twist anticipated. I took a deep breath and shared the idea that had been forming in my mind. But the beautiful thing about Stacy was that I didn't really need to explain. She already knew. She'd always known. Instead of surprise, she gave me that gentle, knowing smile, the kind that said she'd just been waiting for me to be ready. She reminded me that this part of myself wasn't new, it was simply waiting for its moment. And tonight, she promised, would be the first time I let that side of me step proudly into the world. New Year's Eve arrived with crisp winter air and infinite possibility. As evening approached, Stacy and I began the transformation ritual, but tonight felt different, electric, charged with the energy of someone about to step into their destiny. She applied each layer of makeup with the precision of a Renaissance master. Foundation that created the perfect canvas, contouring those sculpted cheekbones I didn't know I had, eyeshadow in subtle golds and bronze that made my eyes look like they held starlight. The mascara came last, each stroke lengthening my lashes until my eyes became the focal point of my entire face. My hair, styled in gentle waves that framed my face, moved with a life of its own. The final touch. Deep red lipstick that demanded attention, that said I wasn't apologizing for taking up space in this world. But makeup was only half the story. The real transformation was waiting on a hanger across the room. And then came the gown. The one that would change everything. Then came the moment I'd been building toward for months, the perfect dress. Floor length, crafted in the most stunning emerald green I'd ever seen. The fabric felt cool and smooth against my skin, like wearing liquid confidence. The design was elegant yet bold, a deep V neckline that was sophisticated without being revealing, gentle pleating that drew attention to my upper body in all the right ways. The waist gathered into a subtle band that sculpted my shape beautifully, and from there the skirt flowed like water, brushing the floor with every step. When I put it on for the first time, I understood what people meant when they talked about clothing having power. I stood in front of the full-length mirror, emerald gown flowing around me like liquid courage, black lace mask in my hands, and for the first time, the person looking back at me wasn't Donald the Invisible Executive. This was someone bold, someone magnetic, someone who commanded attention simply by existing. This was the badass version of myself I'd kept hidden for 28 years. Quick pause. If you've ever had a moment where you stepped into a version of yourself that felt powerful, I'd love to hear your story in the comments. I read everyone, and your stories inspire the next ones I tell. The ride to the hotel felt like traveling to another universe. With each city block that passed, I felt myself settling deeper into this new identity. The mask went on as we approached the grand entrance, black lace that covered just enough to maintain mystery while revealing the confidence blazing in my eyes. The ballroom was everything I'd imagined and more. Crystal chandeliers cast dancing light across marble floors. The grand orchestra played melodies that seemed to pulse with the heartbeat of everyone present. Masked figures in elegant gowns and tailored tuxedos moved through the space like characters in a fairy tale. But when I stepped through those doors, something magical happened. The room didn't exactly stop. That only happens in movies. But I felt the subtle shift in energy. Conversations paused for just a beat. Heads turned, eyes lingered. For the first time in my corporate career, I was the center of attention. Not because I was causing a scene or making a spectacle, but because I was finally, authentically, unapologetically myself. The emerald gown flowed with each step, the fabric whispering against my legs like a secret between lovers. I found myself holding court in ways I'd never imagined possible. Junior colleagues looked at me with something that might have been admiration, or maybe just fascination with someone brave enough to live so boldly. But not everyone in that ballroom was celebrating my transformation. One person in particular wasn't impressed, someone who was waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Across the room, I noticed Sarah watching me with a very different expression. Sarah Stevens, the colleague who'd made my first 6 months at the company particularly challenging. Her eyes held something that looked like recognition mixed with disbelief, and maybe just a hint of something darker. As the evening progressed and my confidence soared, I could sense Sarah moving closer, her usual predatory social instincts activated. For months, she'd been the office bully who never missed a chance to undermine my contributions or make me feel small in front of others. Tonight, she was about to discover that the quiet, invisible Donald she'd been picking on had been replaced by someone very different. Someone who was done being anyone's victim. It was nearly 11 o'clock when Sarah finally made her move. I was standing near the champagne fountain, engaged in an animated conversation with 3 senior partners about emerging market trends, when I felt her presence behind me like a cold shadow. She appeared at my elbow with that same smirk I'd learned to dread in conference rooms, the one that always preceded some cutting remark designed to make me feel foolish or inadequate. Her opening move was predictable, a sarcastic comment about my appearance, delivered just loud enough for our small group to hear. Something designed to embarrass me, to make me shrink back into the invisible man she was comfortable bullying. But here's what Sarah didn't understand. The person standing in this emerald gown wasn't the same person she'd been tormenting for months. The confidence I'd found tonight wasn't just surface deep. It came from finally aligning my outer self with something authentic and powerful inside. Instead of the stammering, apologetic response she expected, I turned to face her fully, my voice steady and clear. My comeback was sharp enough to cut glass, witty, perfectly timed, and delivered with the kind of confidence that comes from finally knowing your own worth. The small group around us went silent for a heartbeat, then erupted in laughter. But this time, they weren't laughing at me. They were laughing with me. Sarah's face went through a fascinating transformation of its own: surprise, embarrassment, and finally a kind of shocked respect. For 6 months, she'd held power over me through intimidation and public humiliation. In 30 seconds, that entire dynamic crumbled. Not because I'd been cruel or vindictive, but because I'd finally shown up as someone who refused to be diminished. She tried to recover with another cutting remark, but the damage was done. Her audience had shifted allegiance, and she knew it. After a few more failed attempts to reassert dominance, Sarah retreated to another part of the ballroom, leaving me surrounded by colleagues who were seeing me, really seeing me, for the first time. The remaining hour of the party passed in a blur of meaningful conversations, genuine connections, and the kind of professional respect I'd been craving since my first day at the company. Senior executives who'd never remembered my name were now discussing potential projects and leadership opportunities. When midnight struck and masks came off around the room, the reveal of my identity sent another wave of surprise through the crowd. But by then, it didn't matter. The connection had already been made. The impression had already been formed. I wasn't a novelty or a shock. I was simply myself. As I looked around the room, I realized something profound had shifted. Sarah's power over me hadn't just been broken. It had been revealed as the illusion it always was. Real power, I understood now, comes from authenticity, courage, and the willingness to be vulnerable in pursuit of truth. Back in my apartment, I stood once again before that full-length mirror, still wearing the emerald gown that had become my armor, my truth, my revelation, all in one. The black lace mask lay forgotten on my dresser, no longer needed now that I'd shown my real face to the world. I ran my hands along the smooth fabric one more time, marveling at how something as simple as clothing could unlock something so profound. But as I looked at my reflection, I realized it had never really been about the dress at all. The gown had been a catalyst, not a costume. It had given me permission to access a part of myself that had always been there, waiting patiently in the shadows for the courage to step into the light. The confidence, the charisma, the ability to command attention and respect, those qualities had been mine all along. But the most significant changes weren't happening in conference rooms. They were happening inside me. I discovered that confidence isn't a personality trait you're born with or without. It's a skill you can develop, a muscle you can strengthen, a choice you can make every single day. The Masquerade ball hadn't changed who I was. It had simply given me permission to stop being afraid of who I'd always been. Other people began sharing their own stories of transformation with me. Colleagues admitted to their own hidden sides, their own dreams of stepping out of limiting boxes. My boldness had apparently given others permission to explore their own authenticity. The quiet revolution I'd started in that ballroom was spreading in ways I'd never anticipated. This wasn't a fairy tale with a neat ending. It was the beginning of a new chapter. There would be other challenges, other Sarah Matthews types, other moments when I'd need to choose between safety and authenticity. But I now had proof that choosing authenticity, however scary, always led to better outcomes than hiding. The end.
The Gender Diary exists to light that path with shared stories. Whether you found connection in this narrative, you're on your own journey of gender exploration, or you're here seeking understanding, your subscription fuels our mission. Every subscriber empowers us to keep illuminating these authentic experiences for our community. Kindly drop a comment below. Your voice adds to the tapestry of experiences that makes this space meaningful. Until our next story unfolds.